Hello, this is Justin Aquino of Game in the Brain. Um, what I have here is my Mongoose Traveller operating costs. I did it around a few days ago. Um, Me and my brother were trying to see how all the operating expenses figure in and how much does it actually cost to to lease uh, to lease out space or to how much it really costs per d-ton of cargo. I've done this also for GURPS Traveler, but let's talk about Mongoose right now. So you will notice that on the left side you will see your annual expenses. The quantity is mostly how it will figure in if you make it annual. Annual makes it simpler because realistically you can't exactly go back to your bank every month because you'll have a route and it's a seasonal route and it might take you out of another parsec, another subsector or system way out of your bank's where you from the bank that originally financed your ship. So I made this annualized. Now you'll notice that it's 24. What the 24 here, you see the 24 and 12 is months. So typically you berth or you hit a location twice a month, every 2 weeks, from A to B, B to C, C to D, etc. So it's like 24 locations in a year. It could be like two locations moving back and forth, 12 times each location, etc. So, okay, let's look at the free trader, the most common one. See the berthing cost, I'm assuming already 600 credits. 24 times, you see the cost. Life supports given monthly times 12, here's the cost. Fuel, since fuel is 5 times more expensive and you have processors, the savings of having a processor, since it's 5 times the cost, and this is how many times you will refuel in the course of a year, how many d-tons you will refuel, these are actually the d-tons you will refuel in the course of a year, is pretty staggering. As you can see here, this is 22. This 22. This 22 is the what you call this. This 22 is the number of d-tons of fuel. 24 is the number of times in a year you will be refueling, or you'll be using up that fuel. So they all add up. So imagine this at 5 times the cost. That will figure into your total expenses. Now, okay. Next, we'll go to maintenance. This is in the entry, 12 months, monthly entry, 12 months, 36. Salaries. I defaulted of a large or fairly large party. I didn't go with the minimum because actually um, redundancy is really important. If I did the minimum, the minimum doesn't really usually apply a lot, very often. Okay, salaries, 45,000. That's practically everybody. You'll find the salaries. I just got the salary list in operations. In page 137, I got the salaries and just added them all up, since one of each. Typically, we have redundancy, so you can actually swap out two low-paying jobs for a higher-paying job. To swap, depending on, you can mix and match, but it's very small incrementally how much it will affect. Oh yeah, there's another thing I did. I increased the salaries by 40%. You'll notice here there's an 80% increase from what they really cost. Why? I assumed 40% taxes and government contributions. Sorry, 40% in terms of call this Yeah, there will be 40%. It's just for the taxes and the contributions and all these other HR related costs that actually a lot of businesses do have, and it's not that it's. I just find it unrealistic that the total cost of ownership is actually this much. No, that's just the take home. Okay, next, you'll see the salaries bloat up to this much. Salary is not a big contributor. It's actually one of the biggest contributors to expenses, but they are all nothing compared to the mortgage. Now, ships. If you, what I did was I got an average mortgage, a very profitable mortgage, average. In my experience in my experience in the Philippine business scene. So it's not. It's pretty high. It's much higher than because the Philippines is very conservative economically. So what happens is that it's like 12% to 20%. It really depends. What I did is I just made it 4D6. GM can just roll 4D6. It's there in my blog. Anyway, so here is assuming 12%, which is pretty standard. Um, Paid over 20 years. So what happens is the prices you see on the book is already the margins of the banks or the financial institutions credited into the cost of the ship. So actually, if you like use do a financial calculation, the actual ship's cost is maybe 1/5, but the rest is in terms of interests. Or if you're a Islamic bank, some other instrument. I'll talk about Islamic financing for the ship as an interesting story hook later on, or if I have time to do that. Okay, other than this ship, you will have depreciation, which is roughly a third because the ship lasts. You're paying 20 years worth of 20 years. So notice it's annual. As you can see, it's annual. 20 years of payments, but the ship will actually last 30 years. This is an arbitrary, so I made this calculation that it's 2/3, depreciation is 2/3 of this. So after you're fully paid in 20 years, you have another 10 years of depreciation to go. And the depreciation allows you to set aside financing and money to buy another ship, hopefully. If you're, anyway, these are arbitrary things. Your GM is really the one who's going to make these decisions. Depends on the economies you're familiar with. If your GM's familiar with the U.S. economy, it'd be better to calculate based on the U.S. economy. If your EU economy, if your German economy, etc., or South American. I don't know what your economy you're familiar with. So this is really about your mine is Philippines, but mine is almost like the American but more conservative. Very much like the American economy but very conservative and high savings rate. Anyway, total expenses. These are the total expenses which you see. So you notice it's all the costs here. That's for the year. That's how much you have to pay. If you don't pay that much, you'll be going negative, and you're typically it takes only 1 year of bad performance for the bank to have second thoughts about your ownership of that asset. Monthly expense. This is me breaking it down to 12 months. So you'll notice it's the expense divided by 12. And jumps. Assuming that you jump twice per month, this is how much it's gonna cost per jump, and this is how much money you have to make per jump. And then this is the cargo space, so you get the money you have to make per cargo space. 88, you have to make that much money. Now, I've argued strongly against speculative trade and freight. That you shouldn't buy a ship for speculative trade, and no financier would ever, unless the financier is trying to bankrupt or destroy the economy of that given sector, or that I'm sure the imperial economy, being as huge as it is, would be very conservative and will very much stomp out everything. If you're trying to simulate how what it takes to have that kind of economy. It has to be really strict. So you've got this cost. This cost is your expense when it comes to your ship and your debtors. These, the least, this is how much it ends up becoming after you factor in the following. The 1.2%, that's 20%, that's roughly the taxes. Of those taxes, there's imperial sales tax. And there is the margin, typical margin factor. Margin is very complicated. It's a makeup of profit margin, risk margin, savings margin that the business needs to make in order to stay relevant. Complicated, but yeah, you'll get the hang of it. In the end, if you're a gamer, you can figure this out. Anyway, so this is how much the annual revenue should be. So assuming that you did 22,100, you'll notice this is made out of your 88 times 24. That's 24 deliveries using up your entire cargo. You get paid for every D-ton. Now this is cheap relative to how much you're paying per space. It's like in the millions and tens of millions. And even if inflation catches up, etc., 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 it still works out to be still pretty cheap per ton. Because this is a 1D ton, and in Mongoose, the mass is not a big deal as much as it is in GURPS Traveller, where mass actually slows down the ship and takes much longer for you to get where you're trying to go. In GURPS Traveller, if your ship's thrust is at the lowest end and you jump into the farthest reaches of the system, it'll take you another 5 days to travel in system. You lost a week because you're gonna have to take 2 days to pick up stuff, etc., etc. It's just a headache. You could say it's more realistic, more challenging. It's up to you. It's your appetite for risk. Anyway, so this is the annual revenue. This is how much you're really earning, but that doesn't. 12% of that goes to the Imperium. That allows them to fund space stations, JTAS, all these other institutions that make the risks fairly reasonable for an entrepreneur to go into freight, and a broker to enlist an entrepreneur's services and lease out some space, some D-tons and cabin. And here are the system taxes, so that the infrastructure of that system will grow. System taxes are typically taken when you make a sale or when you make a delivery, when there's people buying in. You really don't touch it. So it's money depends on how you look at taxes. In the end, it's about passing the buck to somebody. As a delivery entity or as a logistics entity, you tend to pass it to the guy who's making the payment. So you don't have to worry about it. You're not the one who's buying. You're just delivering something, and it just adds to your cost of operations. Okay, so bottom line, this is all you'll see. This is the biggest deal of all of it. It's the cost per this. This is not the what you call this. This is not the final cost. There are market forces. This can double to triple depending on, let's say, the system. There's been reports of piracy in the system, or the fleet has been moved. This cost is going to skyrocket, and free traders, what they will do is that they will ask double or triple and use these costs to hire escorts or try to, etc. Scarcity actually is a good thing for the free traders. At the same time, it's a terrible thing for investors and guys on planet who depend on free traders. So you're abusing somebody who's actually in a very difficult position. But yeah, that's how you make money. Okay. Going on. After other than the risks and how this fluctuates, note that when you're a far trader, your expenses are almost double. So when you're a jump 2 ship, it's double. Note that the cost of this ship, the free trader, and the cost of a far trader are very, very disparate. Meaning that it's not that you'll find 2 free traders for every far trader. No, you might find 4 free traders to 1 far trader. Or depending on the system, you'll find like 10 free traders to 1 far trader. It really, really depends. So it's up to your GM to put up those metrics, and because it's really important for you to make that economic analysis before you jump into any serious financial obligation and commitment. Yeah, I'm a super nerd about this, and it's really I'm the type of GM that will actually give you the layout. Anyway, whatever I say is God, so you can just pull out anything out of your ass, and it would be fine. Anyway, so if you look at the far trader at 51 million versus a free trader 36 million, and the way money works, it's a curve, it's a diminishing return. You might have like 3 more far traders to free traders to 1 far trader. So you might have this. They're not charging 5,000. They might be charging 10,000 per deton. And remember, this is like a maker economy. It is not anymore like your 80s version of the future. It's a vision of the future of 2013. It's a maker economy. You might need very high durability, very high wear and tear parts, super high precision parts that allow for the maker machines to operate continuously. So these are the very high value, high precision technology. And in the end, the high precision technology that allow certain economies to thrive. So you can actually justify charging as much as 10,000 future dollars per deton, which is actually not that big if you think about it. If you think about what a deton entails, and given like the kind of technology you're kind of looking at. Okay, now that I've talked about like the relationship of jump 1 to 2, you'll see the fat trader compared to the free trader. Very small difference in call this costs. 1 economies of scale, since you have 205 versus 88. Now let's look at the far fat trader. Again, almost double. Now you'll see it's 3,820, or you end up 6,000. You can charge maybe 12,000. Heavy freighter. Now this is something that only corporations can get into because of the economies of scale. It's jump 2. It's its cost is far lower than a free trader. It really works by economies of scale. Because of that, you'll notice that the margins calculations are much more lean. It's 15% versus 35%. It's a monopoly that's scheduled for 20, 30 years, for 100 years. Depends. Typically 20 years. 20 to 40 years. 20 years. Depending if it's a government, etc. Typically, governments tend to buy this. What'll happen is most probably the Imperium, the nobles of the Imperium will be the ones holding these monopolies, these ships, and they'll be deriving their power, their ships, from the central government, which is their lord, or the lord of the subsector, whatever logistics chain, the center of the logistics chain and the chain of command. In other words, from wherever the power flows, this is where the ships will come from. And of course, nobles in Traveller own own the corporations, the megacorps that fund their ability to finance their armies, their um, their empires. So it kind of makes sense. So see your costs. See, it's much bigger. And here they make money regard. This is like they're bigger corporations. Their contracts are more one-sided. Their there's less ability to control these guys because they're like really. So there's pros and cons to having this, but really, the cost of it, you can't drive the cost any lower. So yeah, I will make a freighter. That will be my next screencast. I'll make a mega freighter and show it'll be here. It'll be a second sheet, and yeah, the mega freighter will be another screencast. So this is the spreadsheet, and this is an explanation of how it works, and I hope you find this useful, and it gives you an idea of how your ships would operate and what kind of expenses you will look at. The reason why I wrote this is because my first Traveller adventure was a company that was failing, and it kept failing, and they kept buying more equity until it was actually worthless, and it was depressing. And given my experience in real life business, it's really depressing to get into something you don't know how to win, or you don't know how people win it, and it just giving this kind of idea, correcting the system's flaws, is very helpful in the future and makes the game, I think, more achievable. And there's a lot of things that translate into like real life and all these other things. So it's good. I think it has the potential to make it more fun and more enjoyable. So I hope people will find this useful, and maybe some players will see this and may want to play Traveller and won't be intimidated by the math, since I did a lot of the math for them already. Okay, so signing out, this is Quixote, aka Justin Aquino of Game in the Brain. I hope you find this useful, and thank you for your time. Logging out.